So here on the channel at Slimehouse TV, I like to do a lot of toy making content. I like to make a lot of videos about toy making, and there's a few different types of toy production that I'm involved in. I've got the type where you actually sculpt a figure and then mold it and then pour resin inside and make multiples to sell. I also do a bit of sofubi production as well. I've documented a few videos on like the making of sofubi and then my actual involvement in it and making my own sofubi, and that's been awesome. And then I also like to do one-off 3D resin prototypes, like kind of what if figures, like a character from an existing IP. What would that look like in a retro style? Maybe it's a toy that's never been made before. Maybe it's a toy that's been made many times but never in that particular style with that particular aesthetic. And that usually involves me taking a character from an existing IP that I like the look of and then 3D sculpting it in software and then printing it and painting it and making like a nice one-off piece for my collection. And whether it's a character from an old game or a movie or whatever, whenever I've completed those videos, I always open up the comments at the end and say, please give me your suggestions. What's another character that you'd like to see recreated in this style? And there's always some really good ones. There's often ones that I've thought about myself. There's also some guys that I've never even thought would make a good toy and they've been awesome suggestions. And then there's even a bunch of characters that I've never heard of before that I look up and I think, yeah, do you know what? They would make an awesome toy. Even though I don't know who they are, even though I'm not familiar with the IP, there's no denying that that would not make an awesome action figure, and I can't believe it's never been done before. A lot of the time because, yeah, I look and there's never been a toy made of them. Now, as a creative and as a toy maker, obviously, I really like to come up with my own characters. I like to cast them in resin. I like to make multiples and sell them and like create my own IP and my own stories. But fundamentally, at the same time, I am just a huge fan of 80s and 90s pop culture, and it does inspire so much of what I do. So when I create a toy of something like ToeJam and Earl, I know that I can never make them to sell or anything like that. I'm just making them for myself, but I do get a lot out of making something like that. So not only do I get to make like a nice homage piece of something that I like to put on my wall, I spent years as an illustrator and I would always draw fan art and existing characters in my own style just because I wanted to see what they look like. I also get to challenge myself and create new things and learn new skills and like learn new articulation pegs and new ways of sculpting and new techniques that I might not necessarily have learned otherwise. I then get to add that figure to my collection, to my shelf of all the figures that I've made, and I also make a cool video out of it as well. I get content. So there's lots of different reasons why, even though when I make a figure like this, it's not something that I can sell and mass produce, I still get a lot out of it for myself and for the channel. And as I just mentioned, whenever I do make a video like that, I always open up the comments at the end and ask you lot to give me some suggestions, and there's always some really, really good ones. So if we're talking first of all about game characters, there's one character that I've been asked to do many, many times, especially off the back of the last video what I did, which was Raziel from Soul Reaver, and that's Sir Daniel Fortescue. I think that's how you say him, Sir Daniel Fortescue from the game Medieval. Now, even though he's a character that's from a game that's very iconic, personally, I'm not a big fan of that game. The old game I never really played that much, and then I played the remake a few years ago and I thought it was a terrible engine. I really, really did. I didn't like that when you go out and you pick up collectibles and stuff, every time you die, those collectibles reappear and you've got to go and get them again. Like most games, if you go and collect things and then you die, you don't have to go and collect them again every single time you respawn. But that game did. I also felt like when you slash people, it felt really lackluster, like there was no impact to any of the hits or anything like that. I just wasn't a fan of the engine, but the actual character himself, there's no denying that he's very iconic. When I think of those like wacky characters that all came out around the PlayStation era, he's certainly always up there. And there's also no doubt in my mind that if I was to like take that character and sculpt it in my style, that I wouldn't be able to make a very good figure out of it. So yeah, Sir Daniel Fortescue is definitely one that I would like to do at some point. I'd also really like to make Croc, Jersey Devil. That's another character that really doesn't get spoke about that much. I remember the advert coming on TV. Never even really played the game that much. I only played like the first level on a demo disc or something. But again, he's one of those characters that when you think of those classic PlayStation characters that all came out around that time when the PlayStation was first launching, Jersey Devil for me personally is one that I always think about. Abe's Odyssey and that whole world, that are some amazing characters. I'd love to explore them and create some toys based on the creatures and the designs from Abe's Odyssey. That's something I really want to do. There's also a really gnarly game that I used to play called Thrill Kill that actually got banned and was never properly released, but that had awesome characters in it. Zero Divide has got some awesome robot characters that would all make really good action figures. Rayman would also be really cool, and I know he's more of like a mainstream character, but to my knowledge there's never been like a really good action figure made of him because you've got the challenge of the fact that he doesn't have any limbs. He just has floating fists and feet and a body and a head. So I would really like that challenge. I think I could make that with like acrylic rods that still look like they're floating and stuff. It's just a figure that I would like to challenge myself to make. Like I said, when I make these toys, for me it's as much about the challenge as it is about making a cool toy for my collection, because yeah, I always want to challenge myself and level up and get better and better. There's also tons of characters from that more 16-bit era that would be awesome. I'd really like to make Cool Spot because he's such a simple character, but I think I could like take that character and then make him like in a really cool way that was inventive and different and unique. Vector Man I would love to make. Rystar would be awesome. Shakan the Forever Man someone mentioned to me recently. He would be really cool. Like, imagine making him in like a Playmate style. I think that would be a figure that would be incredible. Alien Storm, that's a game that every time I play, I think, yo, I would love to make these characters. I don't know if they've ever been made in sofubi or anything like that, but being made in that old school retro style, especially some of the aliens in that game. There's one that's like a snail, but its shell is a trash can. I always really like that thing, so that would also have some great potential as a figure. Splatterhouse would also be awesome. I know that Unbox Industries released a line of sofubi toys from that series, but there's never been like a retro action figure made of them characters to my knowledge. Like, the list goes on and on and on. We could have like a 4-hour discussion on all the figures that could potentially be made from that 16-bit gaming era. But one that I really want to do, and definitely will do at some point, is create a figure of Turrican. So Turrican is my favourite side-scroller of all time, bar none. I've loved it ever since I was a little kid. The music just takes me somewhere else. I've loved this game all my life. And the really interesting thing about doing a toy of Turrican is that he always looks different on the box art, the menu, and then also in the game. So it would be an interesting challenge again to take all those elements and try and create something that encompasses all of them, still looks like Turrican, but incorporates all the different bits I like from all those different designs. And then if we think about later consoles, there were so many good characters that came out around that like PS2 and Xbox era. I remember a game called Brute Force that had like awesome characters, like a cool crocodile with armor and stuff. He would be an awesome guy to make as a toy. Do you remember Blinks the Time Sweeper? He was a character on a game that I got when I bought my Xbox, and I always really loved the look of that guy. Like a cat with goggles on his head and big green eyes and a big Hoover gun. Again, would make an awesome figure in that Playmate style. There was also a game that came out around that time that I absolutely hammered, and I never really played the first one that much because it was out on a Dreamcast and I never had a Dreamcast, so I just played it a few times at my friend's house. But Jet Set Radio Future on Xbox had some fire characters, and also gets into that potential where like you've got not just one character but a whole series of them. The only problem with that is though that if I'm making like multiple characters, I either have to spend a long time on one video or create it like a series. And with that being a game that like nobody talks about anymore, I know it's getting a remaster soon I think, but that's just a game that like nobody really thinks about or talks about that much anymore. So is it even worth me doing like a 5-part series on Jet Set Radio characters? Because yeah, as much as I would love to do that, at the same time YouTube is a business and I have to be trying to think of videos that people actually want to watch and click on in order for me to get my ad revenue and people to actually see what I'm doing. And I don't just do that, obviously. Like, if you watch my channel, you'll know that I cover so much obscure stuff that nobody thinks or cares about anymore. But there also has to be like a point where like I think, yeah, I can't just be making like real obscure stuff forever. I have to every now and again do something that I know people's going to want to watch. And if I do like a 5-part series of making Jet Set Radio characters, although I would like to do that, it's probably not going to really slap on the channel. Not straight away anyway. Might be like evergreen content, like my Resident Evil video still gets hits, even though it didn't like pop when I first dropped it. But yeah, you know what I mean. One game though that I love, that I will definitely make some figures of at some point, is an old Rockstar game, and it's one that's so gnarly, it's so non-PC, like it's such a gritty, horrible game, but I love it, and that's Manhunt. That game's got so many crazy characters in it. It doesn't really have like a big fleshed out storyline or anything like that. You just play a convict that was on death row and then wakes up, and rather than being killed, he's actually being put into a series of snuff movies where he's got to kill people, and the more violent the kill, the more points you get. Like, it's a really controversial game, but I love the aesthetic of it. Still to this day, if I go out into abandoned buildings and do photography or filming or anything like that, I was recently in one with my friend Dandos a couple of days ago doing some filming, and there's lots of things that I think about when I'm in there, the warriors, the old graffiti culture, but still Manhunt is the first thing that comes to my mind whenever I go into an abandoned building full of smashed up graffiti and glass and stuff. Like, yeah, Manhunt is a vibe. Completely adjacent as well to Jet Set Radio, which is really colourful and fun, and a series that will never get a remaster, like ever, ever, ever. I can't ever see that game getting a remaster, but definitely one that's got a cult following, and definitely one that I'd like to create figures of at some point, even if it was just James Earl Cash and Pigsy, like the ones that you could see in the RC shop in the old GTA San Andreas game. You went into the RC car shop and they were hanging on a rack. Yeah, I would love to, really, really love to create them. So if we forget about gaming characters for a minute and think about some of the other characters that we could potentially create as toys, movies is something that I think has like an unlimited pool of characters that you can pull from to make cool toys of. And I'm not even talking about like well-known movies like RoboCop and Terminator and all that stuff that's been done 100 times. I'm talking about like those obscure 80s movies that not many people know about or nobody knows about and has never had any kind of merchandise, or if it has, like a very limited amount of it. For example, like the Horn figure that I made from Arena when I created that. Nobody really knows about Arena. There's more people that know about it now because Arrow recently released an Empire Films box set that featured it, but that's a film that I've been watching all of my life as a kid on just a grainy old VHS tape. So when I had the idea to create a toy of it, like it just felt so perfect, and making that toy I had such a fun time doing it, like taking some artistic liberties with the areas of the armor that I couldn't see and things, and just bringing that character to life in my own style. I had so much fun with that. Also, the Mandroid that I made as part of my Christmas episode, like that is one of my favourite toys that I own. I've been all over the world hunting down the rarest toys, picking up like grails for my collection, stuff that's really rare and sought after, but still that character is one of my most prized possessions. Out of all of the toys that I've collected, I still put that out there as like one of my favourite toys that I own in my entire collection, and it's a one-off that I just made for myself. A character from a movie that still to this day hardly anybody that I ever speak to has ever heard of. There's also films like Metal Storm and Thunder that have got really cool characters that would make awesome Kenner-style figures. And then there's 80s creature features and horror movies like The Kindred and From Beyond that have big practical effects monsters in them that would make awesome toys in the more Playmates like Ghostbusters, Kenner-style and that kind of thing. The problem that you run into though when you're doing toys like this, like I just mentioned about the game characters, when you're doing real obscure stuff, trying to package that into a video that people actually want to click on, that aren't just like my cool core audience that watch everything that I put out, like you're really like putting yourself into a little niche bracket. There's also characters that have been made into toys before but never in the Slimehouse style, especially in animation and that kind of thing. I'm a big fan of 90s anime, and there's lots of characters that I would like to make from 90s anime that will have been made into toys 100 times but never in that old school retro like American Playmate style, things that I would love to see, like the Guyver for example. I love the Guyver. The Guyver is in my opinion the coolest looking armor ever. It's up there with the Mandalorian and the Space Marine armor and the Predator armor as just like a flawless looking armor, a flawless looking design, and who am I to like not want to like try and create a version of that in my style? You will have seen me do little minifigures before on the channel but never an actual action figure, and also recently, it's right here as well. Ironically, but I didn't set this up, I picked this up the other day from Element Games in Sheffield, and this is my friend Guy's actual signature series colour forged spray paint. So if you like Warhammer, you will have seen Guy before. He runs the channel Midwinter Minis, and he's actually released his own colour. And that is the perfect blue colour for like a base primer on a Guyver figure. So if I'm going to make a Guyver, then you don't know that that's the colour that I'm going to be using for it. So shouts to Guy at Midwinter Minis. If you like Warhammer, go check out his channel. Something you might notice as well when you look at the cast of characters that I've made so far is that there's no women characters, there's no girls, and it's not because I don't like girls or anything like that, quite the opposite. I actually love girls and I love women and I love cool characters that are female, but I've just not made any yet because I'm actually currently working on two that I just can't quite get right. Sculpting the female face is like one of the hardest things to do as a sculptor. It's really hard to draw it and it's even harder to sculpt it. Like one little bit wrong and it starts looking weird, it starts not looking right. It's really easy to sculpt like old characters, but it's really difficult to sculpt women's faces and also like young kids and that kind of thing. At least I think it is, and it seems like the general consensus when I research it. It's a really hard thing to do. So there's a couple of characters that I am currently working on. One of Aloy from Horizon Forbidden West / Zero Dawn, who is like one of my favourite characters ever, not just in game franchises. I literally love Aloy. I call her Bayloy. She's my girl, my G. I love going around and exploring with Aloy. And then also I want to make a character of Ashe from Overwatch, who is the character that I main when I play the game. I don't play as any other character other than Ashe, but when I play as Ashe in Overwatch, I'm an absolute surgeon, and I love playing as her. She's my favourite character in the game. So they're two characters that I would love to create really nice, beautiful homage pieces of that I've just not got round to actually doing yet because I'm still working on the faces of them and trying to get them right before I do the rest of the bodies. Now you probably guessed that today's video wasn't scripted or anything like that. It was very unplanned, just like a simple talking head video, but I feel like I covered lots of the toys that you've suggested and lots of the ones that I've been thinking of, but as always, I always need more and I love hearing your suggestions, so please let me know down in the comments below if there's any characters from anything, a comic, a game, a movie that you think would look awesome recreated in the Slimehouse style. Let me know down in the comments below, and who knows, perhaps we'll even do them one day. I'm currently working on a new toy that I kind of showed an ever so slight little Easter egg of in my last video, so make sure you go back and look out for that. But that's the video that I want to drop next week. I wanted to drop that this week because it's like a topic that's kind of popping at the minute, and like I said, it's nice to try and get something and strike while the iron's hot, but it's just a video that's taking a little bit longer, and I don't like to rush my videos out and rush my projects and rush the paint jobs on them and things. Also though, at the same time, while saying that, last week when I dropped that Raziel video, without me even knowing, pretty much the same hour that I dropped that episode, they announced on YouTube and dropped a new trailer for a remaster of the original Soul Reaver 1 and 2 games, so I couldn't have timed that any better to drop a figure, but yeah, the video just did normal, so who knows, you can try and like strike while the iron's hot and put something out that's popping, or you can do something that you just want to do and is like just something that you want to create for yourself, and who knows, that can be the thing that blows up. YouTube is such an anomaly, I'm always trying to work it out, and whatever I'm saying now, like my opinions on it now, I can guarantee that in 6 months they've completely changed, because that landscape is always changing so much. But yeah, there's so many different characters that I want to make, from movies, comics, animations, games, and all that stuff, that I would love to see turned into toys, and even though they are just one-off figures to put on my shelf, if I can make a good video about them, and at the same time I can also like tell you a little bit about a franchise that you might not have heard of before, then I'm happy. But either way, whatever happens, I really appreciate you lot being here for this video here today. Got lots of really cool stuff happening on the channel. I've got something getting delivered in the next few days that's like a big video that's an official collaboration with a toy brand that you will have like heard a million times mentioned growing up, and something that I'm really excited to get into as well. So yeah, lots and lots of stuff coming. But if this is your first time at the channel, I'm Theo Kane, this is Slimehouse TV, you're very welcome. Let me know who you are, where you're from, what you collect, what you make, and yeah, welcome to Slimehouse TV. Like I said at the start of this video as well, I really love hearing your suggestions of potential characters that I could make and make videos about, so please let me know down below if there's any that I've not mentioned, and also if there's some that I have talked about that you think, do you know what, that would be a really cool idea, I want to see that, I want to back that up, please let me know down in the comments below. So, just want to say again a big thank you for you joining me here for this video today. With all the other stuff that you can be watching on YouTube, it really does mean a lot that you come back here every single week and watch my videos. I really appreciate it, and I hope to catch you in the next one. So until then, I'm Theo Kane, this is Slimehouse TV, and I'm gone. Pow!